Toni's company, 3D Denver's discreet dispensary, is located on a cheerless arterial road, like most of the hash dispensaries, as the typical outlets are known. On entering, customers have to pass through identity controls. That's the law, and you're only allowed in if you're over 21.
Is your ID?
Not everyone is happy to be filmed here. The old drug taboo hasn't yet been laid to rest. Cannabis connoisseurs claim that every grass variety tastes different and has a different effect. And of course, customers are allowed to smell the products before making their choice. There's marijuana to smoke, as well as hash concentrates.
4 milligrams, it's pretty modest dose there. Yeah, I'm gonna try that.
If you don't like smoking the stuff, you can eat it. Baked in chocolate or granola cookies, temptingly packaged, just like in a sweet shop. Sales assistant Megan says that the range is as varied as the customers.
We see all walks of life. There's the younger crowd, or there's some, people that say, hey, we're hippies back in the 70s, we get super stoned, and you're just like, okay, well, try something a little bit stronger. But we do have strains that are specific for maybe, first timers or barely getting their feet wet into the stuff. And
I'm not sure.
On a good day, the shop attracts over 200 customers. But that's nothing compared with the 1st of January 2014, the day of the grand opening.
On January 1, it was amazing. 3D Cannabis was the home of the first legal recreational sale. We had hundreds of media here and over 1,000 people waiting to come in. It was a record day. We sold out of marijuana. The first 2 months we were open, we could only be open on the weekends because we were selling so much marijuana and there was not wholesale marijuana available. And within the first 3 months of recreational sales, I did as much in sales as I did in 3 years as a medical dispensary.
The time of shortages is long past here, but customers from elsewhere are still just as amazed. Back home, these 3 tourists from Indiana have to buy marijuana on the black market.
It's a little weird because it's legal and everybody's doing it, right. But from where we're from, it's very taboo. Nobody talks about it.
It's very different than the situations we have in Indiana or other parts of the country where you find somebody who does it illegally, and so you're kind of illegally buying and kind of going underneath the radar, and the whole black market where this is so wide out and open and so in the air that it's almost overwhelming.
Thousands of tourists come to Denver every day to be overwhelmed. But there's no drug scene in sight. The dispensaries close at 7 in the evening. Joints are strictly prohibited in public, even on hotel balconies. Nor can you light up a joint in a bar.
You don't see people consuming anywhere, but it's happening all over the place. And it's hard for tourists to really figure out where to consume.
Justin Walker knows what tourists want, and he finds ways of solving their problems. His company, My 420 Tours, thinks up leisure events for cannabis-savvy visitors to Denver, like workshops for baking hash cookies, or cannabis sightseeing tours in a party bus.
Why is there seating on?
People come from all over the US to take part, including this time a cook from Michigan and a couple of honeymooners from North Carolina. Jenny, the tour guide, dishes out a generous handful of joints. That raises the spirits straight away.
You want one of these? Let us know. I can give you a promo code for 20% off. And I think they're there quite yet. We kind of got up.
But it needn't always be joints. Jenny shows some other options for getting high, like hash pens, which can be smoked without producing heat or smoke.
You have? All right, so we're gonna let him be our tester here. So you just push the button and you inhale slowly. You want that coil to get time to heat up. Yeah, right? Oh my God. I don't know if that's feels like a drug. Double as a weapon.
Another alternative to a joint, an aluminium pipe. It's lighter than it looks.
Oh, look at Aunt Rox over here rocking it.
Alright, so now we're gonna head over to the LeConte's grow, which is basically where they're growing the babies.
Baby plants, that is. A breath of air is good for everyone. There are no first-timers among the grass tourists, but none of them has ever seen cannabis babies before, including the blonde amateur photographer who used to teach mathematics.
I started consuming cannabis when I was 15 and have moved here to Colorado 5 years ago because of the marijuana movement. I wanted to make sure that I could consume and not have to worry about going to jail.
This man is actually from Denver, but he still joined the tour.
This was something to get out and be social in the marijuana scene.
It's nice to see people from all walks of life, people from different countries from all around the world coming together, and all because of cannabis.
The culture is calm, everyone's cool, nice people. It's a cool culture.
And the tour operator is happy with his turnover of up to $100,000 a month.
We estimate around 2.5 million visitors to Colorado per year are regular cannabis consumers. So it's a large market. There's a lot of opportunity with it, and we just like to tap into it just a little bit.
Toni Fox's company, 3D, has secured itself a large slice of the cannabis cake. At least half her customers are tourists, and the sort who can well afford a trip to Colorado.
The majority of the people that come through my center have gray hair. So that's a huge misconception as well, is that it's the youth that are purchasing these products. And in actuality, it's business people, it's older people, it's professional people, it's well-to-do folks. And they're all very excited. Perhaps they've used cannabis once or twice in the past or illegally at some point in time, and they're coming here to try the legal market.
Trying the legal market costs quite a bit more than the black market, over $10 for a joint. But for that, you don't have to roll it yourself.
This is a standard marijuana cigarette that we sell here at the facility. These are rolled by hand, but there's no glue to lick or anything of that nature. It's very sanitary, and there's filters on the end of it. So it's a very consumer-friendly way to smoke cannabis. But again, it's very potent for somebody who hasn't used cannabis in a long time. So our recommended dosage for a non-daily user is 1 or 2 inhalations, and then we ask them to put it out.
The other products too are anything but cheap, but that may not last long. There's movement on the price front.
Initially, supply and demand, the prices were very high January 1st because it was very difficult to get marijuana, and there was such a limited amount of us that were open. But now the laws are changing and the prices are dramatically decreasing. By this time next year, it'll probably be half that price.
And that is thanks to the large-scale producers which have come to the fore in Denver, especially the Medicine Man Company, the top dog in the cannabis market. Nearly 1,000 plants are packed into every hall at Medicine Man, plant after plant. Drug cultivation as industrial mass production. Pete Williams is one of the founders of the family firm.
We've always, from the beginning, wanted to be the biggest. We're kind of back here in an industrial area, hard to find, but we have the lowest prices in town. So once people find us, they know we have good quality, great consistency, and the lowest prices in town, so they continue to come back over and over.
Got some favorites. I really like White Poison, Flow, and our Blue Dream right here. Okay. That one's 60%, 70, maybe 70 or 80% all sativa. Have that moment of discovery and find which one you might like the most. I could probably make it happen a little faster, but...
Happy customers are what Medicine Man wants. Just a short while ago, the product they're selling was banned as a dangerous drug. So what? Now, it's all about business.
Right now, marijuana is pretty expensive, and we want it to be affordable, like beer. You know, people can go have a beer after work, and it's just a couple dollars. We want it to be the same way with marijuana.
The lure of the illicit, which was all part of the attraction of the hash haze way back in hippie days, doesn't interest Medicine Man. That was yesterday.
That was part of the excitement of smoking marijuana, is you're doing something a little bit wrong. And now that it's socially acceptable, you don't have that paranoia anymore, which was part of being high, was being paranoid that someone was going to catch you. So that paranoia is gone now, which is nice, but it's becoming socially acceptable. In the beginning, people still looked at us like we were evil, and the more it gets legitimized and more it happens in Colorado, the more people stop treating us like second-class citizens.
What counts today is efficiency. For the tightly packed plants to thrive and get enough oxygen, they're fanned and ventilated round the clock by a sophisticated air conditioning system. High-tech madness made in Germany. A staff of 60 take care of the plantations in shifts. It might look otherwise, but smoking pot on shift is prohibited. There's no messing about here. If you're caught, you're out.
It's not a bunch of stoners smoking pot all day at work. We're businessmen, and we have standard operating procedures.
Systematic yield increase, more and more plant material. The future of the legal cannabis industry seems headed for total expansion. It's hard to guess how much marijuana is stored in the Medicine Man cure room. Every bucket is worth a fortune.
This bucket here is the best we have in the building. This is called Girl Scout cookies, and it's a higher THC content. It tastes great, it smokes great, it gets you very high. This is a very famous and popular name brand of marijuana. This is $30,000 in this one bucket.
The Colorado economy is flourishing. Denver has something of a gold rush atmosphere, as it had 150 years ago in the original gold rush, when the dome of the Capitol was decorated with real gold. There are around 500 cannabis companies in Denver. Their emblem, the green cross, has become part of the cityscape. There are the big companies like Toni Fox's 3D, but a host of smaller ones too. Most of them have been in existence for some time as medical outlets. Cannabis for medicinal use was legalized in 2010, followed by across-the-board legalization in 2014. Large or small, everyone's profiting from the hash boom. Like businessman Ian Sieb. He opened Denver's very first medical outlet, Denver Relief. Nowadays, he's left behind the everyday retail trade and devotes himself to higher things, networking and consulting.
We get 30 or 40 contacts a week, people making an inquiry to us that have an idea, or they're an investor who are looking to put money behind an idea, or looking to couple with somebody who's got an existing business, trying to create funds specifically for investing into this industry.
That's anything on this show.
Colorado is no longer of interest just to pot consumers. The industry has meanwhile become a focus for all types of business people, even for those who have nothing to do with the drug.
Is referring to the gold rush or the green rush. Certainly during the gold rush, a lot of people made money without ever prospecting for gold. And those were the people that were selling the picks and shovels and the jeans and the equipment to the gold miners. And so you take that, you extrapolate that same type of information and put it into an industry like this. You have packaging providers, and you have insurance providers, and you have security, and you have surveillance, and you have compliance, and you have interior designers, and you have chefs, and you have lawyers, and you have accountants, and you have retail specialists.
More than $500 million revenue in 2014. High on its own success, the cannabis sector sees itself as the beginning of a brand new, enormous industry.
It's rare in one's lifetime that you get to see the creation of a new industry. Our grandparents saw it with the steel industry. We saw it with the newspaper industry. We saw it with the automobile industry. We saw it with the .com industry. And now it's the cannabis industry.
And like all industries, the cannabis producers have formed an umbrella organization, the Marijuana Industry Group. The association has offices on the 37th floor of a building in downtown Denver and intends the industry to be taken seriously. Long gone are the dingy days of black market dealers. Chairman Mike Elliott has impressive figures to present.
Total in the state of Colorado for 2014, this will be a $600 to $700 million industry. I bet by next year or 2016, this will be $1 billion a year industry in just Colorado.
Elliott believes the legalization of soft drugs was a necessary and logical step. People are going to use them anyway, so why not profit from it?
What we've seen with 45 years of a drug war in the United States is that marijuana is still going to be bought and sold and grown. Particularly, it's going to be used in our schools. It's been that way for decades. So we're just simply taking our heads up out of the sand and acknowledging the fact that marijuana has been bought and sold, and we would rather it be sold by licensed, regulated, taxed businesses instead of the drug cartels.
To maintain the ban is regressive, according to Mike Elliott. Worse still, a return to one of the darkest chapters in American history, the Prohibition period, when alcohol was consumed in illegal dives.
I think about alcohol prohibition and Al Capone. You know, the mafia, they were happy to come in and take over and make all of this money and use that money to completely defy the police, our government, taxation. And it's exactly what's happening with marijuana. And you know, one thing I ask people when I'm out doing events is, you know, who would you rather have selling you your alcohol? Al Capone or someone like Colorado's current governor, John Hickenlooper?
The governor is not only the most powerful man in Colorado, everyone here knows him as the owner of the Wynkoop Brewery. Beer made Hickenlooper very rich.
Everyone pretty much agrees. We would rather it be John Hickenlooper selling the alcohol to us, not Al Capone.
At 3D, Toni Fox agrees. Even though legalizing the market means having to accept stringent controls, all her products have to fulfill a wide range of stipulations.
It's all pre-packaged in child-resistant bottles. Megan, can you hand me a bottle up there of anything? Labeling is very important in the industry to be compliant with the state. It's very detailed. So we have to track the strain, the weight, the inventory barcode, the labels, our license letters, and the verbiage is very similar to a pharmaceutical pill bottle. Do not operate heavy machinery, do not consume when you're pregnant, things of that nature. And it's tested, every batch is tested.
Mainly for chemicals. They're taboo. Everything that grows here is free of pesticides. "30 staff take care of the plants by hand. The production of marijuana is painstaking and labor-intensive. Nevertheless, Toni had no trouble finding workers. It's cool for them to be part of a new industry. They cut up the dried plants and trim the leaves away from the flowers, all day long. At the end, they're left with the butts, as they're known, the smokable final product, which is weighed and packed in special containers. Being involved with cannabis every day was a dream come true for Faith, one of the packers.
I was a veterinarian technician and have always been very passionate about marijuana. When the opportunity came around to get in this field, I jumped at it.
She had to fulfill various requirements, though. In the marijuana business, cleanliness is important. If you want to work here, you have to be screened, make an application, name previous employers, and provide a police clearance certificate. This also applied to Sam, the security man, himself a former policeman.
I think it's a good thing to keep the criminal element out of it and to have people that are really invested in it legitimately to be able to work and compete in the industry.
To ensure that companies not only sell their products legitimately, but also comply with all the rules, they are monitored meticulously by the Marijuana Enforcement Division, the powerful marijuana authority for the state of Colorado. Here, licenses are issued or withdrawn, backers and investors are scrutinized, and the bank accounts of people applying for jobs are checked.
So it's kind of like a gatekeeping process at the front end of licensing before anyone can operate now that they have to go through. So we have rules that are dedicated to that. Then after that, most of the rules are really focusing on monitoring of licensees and ensuring that they're accountable for all of the product that they produce and all of the product that they sell.
Louis Koski's team has worked out a system for monitoring cannabis production precisely. Every single cannabis plant in Colorado is given a tag with a barcode from its earliest days on.
This is where the plant gets its RFID tag. So at this point, then it is officially tracked as a live viable marijuana plant by the state of Colorado.
Big Brother in the greenhouse. The tag contains a computer chip, which can be read by radio frequency. Louis Koski's people can therefore monitor whole greenhouses remotely. And if they're coming for an on-site inspection, they never let you know in advance.
They walk into the room and they just scan the room. And they're able to identify every plant that has one of these tags on it. So they can come to me and say, Toni, there's 10 plants missing out of this room, where could they be? So it's a very state-of-the-art, heavily tracked, regulated industry.
It is a very sophisticated system, and it's a great tool for us in terms of being able to give the licensees an avenue by which to report information consistently to us, and it also gives us real efficient ways by which we can do spot checks and ensure that licensees are in compliance.
When it comes to compliance with the rules, there's no messing with the authorities. And the industry goes along with them. Everyone is very aware that Colorado is under observation.
For decades, the marijuana community and law enforcement have been polar opposites. They've got nothing to work together or agree on. And with our industry, we actually have a lot that we work on with the Marijuana Enforcement Division. And because we all have the same thing in common, which is to make this program work.
Not only the rest of the US, but the rest of the world is looking to Colorado. So much the better, says Toni Fox, and she abides by the rules.
Anything we can do to help forward global legalization, that's always been my mission. So whatever we can do, I'm fine paying an exorbitant amount of taxes and being the guinea pig for the world, because I think we're doing a really good job here, and we're showing that a regulated, taxed market is a good thing.
There's also a family reason why Toni Fox is such a fervent campaigner for legalization. She lives outside Denver, at the foot of the Rocky Mountains. Here, the story of her younger brother is ever present. He was branded a criminal for minor drug offenses.
He sold pot in small amounts to his friends, but he kept a journal. And over a 2-year period, he had accumulated enough data that when the federal agents came in and found that book, they charged him with a mandatory minimum sentencing guideline of 10 years in a federal prison. And he never had more than $20 or $30 in his pocket. And he was incarcerated for almost a decade of his life because of it.
Toni visited her brother in prison. It made her very angry and sad.
When you have to visit a family member that you love in a prison or a jail, it's heartbreaking. And when I got into the business 4 years ago, when I walked into a prison, I kept thinking, this could be me. I could be put away for life for what I'm doing, growing thousands of marijuana plants and selling millions of dollars worth of marijuana. My life could be over by the voice of a federal agent.
Toni Fox was outraged at the disproportionate nature of American drug policy, so she became a cannabis activist. She got involved in the 2012 ballot on legalizing soft drugs in Colorado. It was a bitterly fought campaign between opponents and supporters. Most politicians and the highest justice authorities were against legalization, as was the governor of Colorado, John Hickenlooper. The journalist John Ingold followed the campaign for the Denver Post. Cannabis activists suspected at the time that the governor was worried about declining sales for alcoholic drinks.
The governor thought that voters were reckless to pass a legalization law. He said that he thinks there could potentially be a lot of unintended consequences. There were worries about that crime might increase.
In the offices of Governor Hickenlooper, people were principally worried about the reputation of Colorado as a model state. As Andrew Friedman, the Cannabis Commissioner of Colorado, recalls.
We had fears that marijuana businesses ended up to be hotbeds of crime. And if there was a whole bunch of crime every time somebody opened up a marijuana business, well then everywhere that a marijuana business would open up, the property values would decrease, people would get scared, people would move out. And then you'd have little red light districts all over Colorado. I think those were worries that we had at the beginning. We haven't seen that so far. In fact, property value has gone up around a lot of marijuana shops.
This has happened on the outskirts of Denver, of all places, where many of the cannabis plantations have set up. These areas are suddenly sought after.
For example, on Brighton Boulevard here where we're at, this was a dilapidated industrial facility, kind of a junkyard area of town, and slowly but surely all of the lots are being leased and renovations are going up. They're demolishing a lot of the old industrial properties just down the road from us.
The city is developing, thanks to cannabis. Governor John Hickenlooper, in the meantime, is holding back with his earlier criticisms. He's raking in the tax revenue and keeping his mouth shut.
We don't see tax revenue as a benefit of this. It's something people talk about a lot. But if you're doing this for tax revenue, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. It's not. We'll get in $50.1 million this year. That's enough to cover our regulation costs and then provide some public safety, public health, and youth prevention programs.
The governor's fears have not materialized. Quite the opposite. According to the official statistics for the state of Colorado, the incidence of violent crime has gone down by 23%.
We're having a lot of young people move into Colorado for reasons that may or may not have to do with marijuana. I think the state's changing a little bit, and obviously, you know, our poll results that we've done show that people are still generally in favor of marijuana legalization.
The pot tourists have nowhere near had their fill of the stuff yet. As practiced stoners, they can still manage a few more drags. Jenny, the tour guide, explains the different varieties of cannabis, but no one seems very interested. Most popular is still the classic joint, but the new edible products have their own appeal.
Does everybody know what edibles are? Yep. All right, so start out with about 5 milligrams, wait for an hour and a half to 2 hours, see how you're feeling, eat another 5 milligrams if you want to be more high. If you feel content and high enough, then stop at that point. She's feeling like a bad girl right now.
The next stop is the La Conte dispensary, way out in the suburbs. Here, the tourists can buy all the products they've been trying out in the bus: joints, pipes, and hash pens. And of course, the much acclaimed edibles, which have been growing in popularity recently in the cannabis community. Toni Fox sells them too, as sweets or chocolate bars. Easy to eat, but hard when it comes to getting the right dose. Toni even sells soft drinks containing cannabis.
This is a Dixie elixir, a root beer sarsaparilla. It's amazing, actually, and there's 75 milligrams of THC in here, so this is very potent. So what we recommend for the consumer is actually drinking less than a quarter of the bottle and then putting it in the refrigerator. It's difficult because it tastes so good.
It can go wrong sometimes. At Denver's University of Colorado Hospital, the last year has registered an increase in the number of patients treated for overdose symptoms. They're seen by toxicologist Dr. Monty.
We certainly see more than we did before. Almost all of those cases actually tend to be edible marijuana products. And so they come in with rapid heart rate, sweating, agitation, and anxiety.
The consumers have been warned, though. The amount of active substance in every piece of chocolate is written on the packet.
Edible products actually are very good, and the pharmacodynamics and how quickly it gets into your system is excellent for when treating medical conditions. The problem is when people are looking to take this for intoxicating purposes, it doesn't actually come and give you clinical effects for at least 30 minutes and more like 2 to 3 hours. And so what happens is users tend to stack these things when they're trying to use it for intoxicating purposes. If you take too much of it, then indeed you can have trouble, just like with any other drug.
Admittedly, the symptoms are easy to treat. A sedative is often enough. But marijuana is definitely dangerous for young people. It can cause great damage to the teenage brain. Dr. Monty thinks the age limit of 21 is too low.
We certainly know that the human brain develops up until about the age of 25. And I think that marijuana use, as well as any potential toxin use while the brain is developing up until the age of 25, should be avoided. And I think that that is clear for marijuana. The evidence is striking that it decreases IQ and harms brain development. And actually there's also risks of higher risk of depression and psychiatric disease.
One thing that Dr. Monti can't understand is why drugs that are harmful for children are sold in harmless-looking, colourful packaging.
I don't believe edible products should be manufactured in very appealing formats. There's no reason why an edible product should be put in candies. It just simply is far too appealing for children to get into it unintentionally. And also it becomes easy for people to mistake it and eat it and eat too much of it and end up in an emergency department.
The problem is now being officially considered. Lewis Koski's regulatory authority is looking for solutions.
The legislature asked us to convene a work group to talk about making edibles more recognizable to the general public, to distinguish them from other food type items. And so we're actually in the process of that.
Toni Fox is looking for solutions too, for different problems. Following a sudden cold spell in the mountains, she had to harvest an open-land marijuana plantation ahead of time. That means a lower yield. At the same time, competition on the cannabis market is getting tougher and tougher. Supply and demand issues are shaking the market. Prices are going down. The cannabis companies in Colorado have made great efforts to raise production. So Toni has to keep pace. More lamps, more light, additional staff, greater efficiency.
In order to get the best quality and the biggest yields, you want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to ensure that for the plant. And so we do have a plant doctor, a scientist on staff to help enhance or improve cultivation.
Eric Hunter is actually a mineralogist who mixes feed solutions for the plants. He's much more of a plant optimizer than a plant doctor.
We've experimented with different types of fertilizers and we've experimented with different types of lights because our business survives on grams per watt and grams per square foot. So we always strive to get the most out of a small area and a lot of electricity.
The doctor tests and tinkers with ever-new parameters. There's not a trace of stoner romanticism here. What counts is yield.
So that's the goal of what we're trying to do, is to get them to produce more bud in a set amount of time.
Toni Fox doesn't like the latest developments, but she can't swim against the tide. That's how things roll in a free market.
We're seeing millions of square feet of cultivation being developed and tens of millions of dollars going into this cultivation. And what it's going to do is it's going to flood the market with recreational cannabis. So we're going to see a decline in prices across the board. It's just another hurdle to jump over, I think. And I think that a lot of people are going to lose their businesses over the next 6 months to a year because the competition is going to become so tough.
Good, so.
The Medicine Man Company, the industry giant in Colorado, couldn't care less. Hordes of people are lining up at the counter every day. In a good month, the Medicine Man turnover can be up to $1 million. Falling prices are part of the system.
Colorado citizens are getting to be snobs. Their nose is going up in the air. So they want to have a large selection and they want cheaper prices. So you have to get creative. You have to offer a special, a sale, or buy one, get one free or something like that. Because there's so many different places for people to choose from, you've got to either be cheaper or better if you want to stay in business.
Medicine Man's answer is industrial scale production. Almost. Harvesting the plants, transporting them, moving the cannabis cultures to other halls, curing the buds, everything runs like a well-oiled machine. Medicine Man even breaks the taboo that other companies uphold. For the cheaper cannabis varieties, a trimming machine does the job of removing the small leaves from the cannabis flowers.
Our next step will be the fully automated, where a human hand doesn't touch the plant after it's been made into a baby. And I could see that coming, and we could save a lot of money.
Nothing is wasted. The dried leaves are sold to bakeries, where they're used to make edible products. Only the stalks, which contain practically no active substance, are thrown away. Medicine Man, an enormous processing machine. The cannabis giant, which is already hugely powerful, is crushing the competition through its sheer size.
I could see the large facilities like ours taking over the whole industry, and then there'll be smaller mom and pop shops that have very gourmet product or something special there that they can't get elsewhere. But I really think the majority of the marijuana industry will be in large facilities like this.
Viewed from a strictly economic standpoint, Medicine Man has got it right. The company is flying high on an upsurge of permanent growth. And Pete Williams is unconcerned that there's still opposition to legalization, even in Colorado.
I think there always will be a moral objection. Well, there'll always be opponents to marijuana, but I think the majority of people will see that there's no harm being done, and it's even less harmful than alcohol or cigarettes, and people are sitting at home and watching TV rather than going out to the bar and getting in fights.
The only way is up. For an American self-made man like Pete Williams, the motto is think big.
I really think someday this will be similar to going to the store and buying a pack of Marlboro cigarettes. You'll go to the store, or your husband or wife will send you to the store and say, honey, go buy me a pack of Medicine Mans. That's what our dream is, to make it mainstream, to where when you think of marijuana, you think of the name brand Medicine Man.
How many of the small-time operators will survive? Or is the expansion already confronting its limits? The industry's monetary transactions are still a problem. In the US, banks are subject to federal law, and on the federal level, profits from drugs are illegal earnings. A lot of companies are confined to cash operations. Their proceeds are transported by security companies. An absurd situation. Toni Fox's company, which has stock worth over $250,000, can't officially have a bank account.
Personally been very fortunate to have a bank that knows who I am and what I do. I still live in fear every day, and they tell me all the time, we could close your account. If we're asked to do that, we will close your account.
The consequence is that day-to-day business is conducted in cash.
MasterCard and Visa came out last August and said, we don't want your money. We're not taking it. And at that time I said, that's fine, because you're charging me too much for it anyway.
Customers can now withdraw money from cash machines.
We have the ATMs on site, which have been very helpful for folks, and they all pay in cash. Everything's done in cash. Many of my vendors, many of the people that I purchase product from, can't get bank accounts, so all of that transaction is done in cash, which is very difficult from a bookkeeping standpoint.
Alan Brockstein, a financial consultant, is fully aware of the problems. He knows his way around the cannabis industry as he does the New York Stock Exchange. He analyzes the market and follows the performance of cannabis companies on the stock exchange. Brockstein has just flown in from Texas. He's in Denver to meet business associates. His job is to buy promising cannabis shares on behalf of investors.
A lot of people want to invest, but investing intelligently, that's a little bit more of a challenge. So I was saying I don't have to really convince people to invest. I really have to convince them not to invest sometimes, if that makes sense.
Because from the stock exchange point of view, the industry is a jungle. There are an awful lot of cannabis companies listed on the stock exchange, but their shares are low-value penny stocks. And the situation is anything but predictable.
There's so much that's unknown. This isn't like investing in Coca-Cola. This is a hugely risky endeavor when you try to pick who the winners are going to be. Nobody knows right now who the winners are going to be. There aren't brands, there aren't profits. You'll have a lot of failures, but some of the successes could be quite dramatic.
But a stumbling block, according to Brockstein, is the fact that the money is earned by companies that operate legally in Colorado, but are illegal at the federal level.
If you're talking about the dispensaries and the growers, they're breaking federal law. There's no doubt about that. They're breaking federal law. Now, are they going to be prosecuted? Who knows? But in the United States, it's a big issue. I mean, theoretically, if you invest in the stock of a company and the federal government decides that they're breaking the law and they're going to shut them down, that's a big problem.
And American exchange-listed companies are concerned about their reputations. Cannabis is still a taboo subject in a lot of minds, including those of brokers.
Even though it's legal in Colorado now and legal in Washington and becoming legal in Oregon and Alaska, and we have 23 states that have either implemented or are in the process of implementing medical marijuana, the stigma is still huge.
The tourists on the pot tour have reached their final stop, a shop that stocks a huge range of water pipes and smoking utensils, a twinkling testimony to the glassmaker's art, and another opportunity for the tourists to spend their dollars. They're on their way back now after a 4-hour cannabis trip. Even habitual users can't smoke forever.
And he was wondering why. We're just what a good mama. And didn't rat me out to my parents.
I see a different group every week.
Nevertheless, the atmosphere is fantastic and extremely relaxed. Finally, the last joint is stubbed out. The newlyweds couldn't have imagined a better honeymoon trip.
To recover from all the wedding planning.
Like anything you could try and think about back home, you don't. So you get to finally relax for once.
This is the funnest tour I've ever been on. It's worth the trip. Indeed. We got really stoned.
The cannabis community would like the whole country to be allowed to get stoned to its heart's content. No one wants to imagine that, even here in Colorado, the blissful bubble might burst one day.